Each morning when you wake up, what do you choose? Do you choose to hit the snooze button, mindlessly scroll through your phone, and then rush into the day? Or do you choose to pause for a few minutes to take control of yourself? That question may seem simple, but each time you delay, you're missing an opportunity. Every time you say, just 5 more minutes, you're handing over control of your life to old habits. And when that happens often enough, you're no longer in charge of your day. You're merely being swept along. It's not determination that we lack. What we lack is consistency. How many times have you said, I'll start tomorrow? How many times have you woken up regretting that you didn't keep your word to yourself? How many times have you felt ready to change only to begin the day as someone with no choice? The difference between a proactive day and a passive one doesn't lie in luck. It doesn't lie in inspiration. It lies in the first 10 to 20 minutes. A short amount of time, but one that defines who you are today. The one in control or the one being controlled. You don't need a revolution. You only need to start a little earlier, be a little more awake, and keep your promise to yourself just in the first 20 minutes of the day. Are you ready? 1. The meaning of those fleeting moments when you don't want to get out of bed. We all know that feeling. The alarm rings, but your body feels like it's being pulled back down into the mattress. Your eyes half open, then shut again. Your hand reaches for the snooze button like a reflex. That morning starts late, and you tell yourself again, just today. But today repeats and then becomes a habit. Waking up late doesn't just waste time. It gradually dulls your willpower. The morning is not the enemy. That feeling of not wanting to get up early doesn't mean you're lazy. It means you haven't yet found a reason worth waking up for. When there's no clear purpose to begin the day, the bed always wins. But all it takes is one small thing, one intentional action to change that. The first 10 to 20 minutes of the day, though brief, can become a turning point. It's not the time to just get through. It's the time to return to yourself. It's when you can awaken a reason, a commitment, a silent promise to your own soul. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be honest. You can sit up in silence, take a deep breath, write a few lines about what you're grateful for, or simply stand up and make your bed. The first act that proves you're no longer running from yourself. These acts are small, but not meaningless. They are how you teach your mind. I choose to rise not because I have to, but because I want to live consciously. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." People don't wake up because the alarm rings. They wake up because something inside calls to them. If you haven't heard that call yet, begin with the silence of the morning, where your inner voice speaks the clearest. Waking up early isn't about showing off your productivity. It's about creating a sacred space before the world rushes in. It's about owning those first 10 to 20 minutes before everyone else starts pulling you in their direction. It's about training your will like a muscle, once each morning. No one's asking you to become someone who rises at 4 a.m., but everyone needs a reason to wake up at their right time. And that reason is not out there. It's within you. It appears when you dare to sit up, even with stinging eyes, and whisper, "How do I want to live today?" Freedom doesn't come from how many hours you sleep. It comes from what you choose to do in that first waking moment, because that's when you still have the power to choose, to live deliberately, or to let another day pull you along. The morning is a gateway, and each day you hold a key in your hand. Use it. 2. Intentional wakefulness. Wake not just to exist, but to take charge. There's a clear difference between being pulled out of bed and stepping out of bed by your own will. One is a reaction, the other a choice. The unconscious person lets the alarm yank them awake, beginning the day in a passive, sluggish state. But the mindful person doesn't wait for the alarm to grant them permission to live. They enter the morning as a ritual to awaken the will. Intentional wakefulness doesn't come from schedules or deadlines. It comes from an inner question. What am I living for? And how do I want to live today? While others are still dreaming about what they'll do someday, the intentional person has already sat down, breathed deeply, and written what they will do today. Nelson Mandela, during his years imprisoned on Robben Island, had no flexible schedule, no ideal space to meditate or read, yet he maintained a warrior spirit each morning. In the silence of chains and cold stone, he used stillness as a weapon to shape his mind, write journals, and reflect inward, as if the prison could never touch that part of him which refused to be subdued. You don't have to be imprisoned to understand the value of an intentional morning. Just 5 to 10 minutes without distraction, a quiet moment without social media, emails, or breaking news is enough to cultivate awareness. Sit still, close your eyes, or write a few lines about what you're grateful for, what you fear, what you want to do today. Epictetus once taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Before action, you must define who you want to become, and you can't do that in noise, in reaction, or in clutter. You can only do that in the quiet of the early day, where your intention to live is clearly named. The mindful person doesn't start the day by checking their calendar. They begin by checking in with themselves. They don't ask, what do I have to do today? But rather, am I living in line with what I truly value? And when the answer is yes, no matter how tiring the work, how congested the streets, or how chaotic life becomes, they remain in control. That is the root of personal freedom. Being able to master your mind before the world has a chance to sway it. And to do that, you need only begin with one simple act. Wake up. Not because you have to, but because you choose to. 3. Prioritize small but meaningful actions. Build a solid foundation with just one brick. No one builds a fortress in a single morning, but those with vision begin each day by laying down a firm brick. The first 10 to 20 minutes of the day are not meant for doing big things, but for doing the right thing. Not too much, just in the right direction. Successful people don't start their day in a rush. They choose actions that are small but defining, like choosing how to place their first foot on the ground. Oprah Winfrey doesn't need a loud morning to begin her day. She spends a few minutes on yoga, on breathing, on reconnecting with her body before stepping into the world and becoming a guide for millions. Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, wakes up at 4:30 a.m. not to chase the work cycle, but to create a space of clarity where he can read, think, and strategize while the world still sleeps. It's not just a routine, It's intentionality. And that intention begins with one small act: mastering the morning, rather than letting the morning master you. You don't need to imitate them, but you can choose a simple act that holds personal meaning. A passage of inspiring writing, a quickly scribbled journal entry, a few stretches to awaken the body's energy, or just making a cup of coffee slowly in silence as a reminder to yourself, I am present, I am in control, I am not being pulled away. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Morning small actions don't avoid obstacles. They teach you how to move through them. Waking early isn't easy, focusing isn't easy, but the moment you choose to do them voluntarily, you prove to yourself that you have the power to decide, even if only for the first 15 minutes of your day. Small intentional acts are how you retrain the muscle of self-discipline. Not to get more done, but to create alignment between thought and action. When you say, I want to live meaningfully, the first proof of that is, what do you do with your morning? And will you keep doing it tomorrow? Inner stability doesn't come from a dramatic act. It comes from the quiet repetition of right choices. A small movement repeated becomes a way of living. A small purposeful habit over time becomes identity. And all of that begins in the morning. So don't underestimate something seemingly simple: folding the blanket, drinking water, reading one good sentence. The simpler it is, the more likely you are to keep it. And the more you keep it, the easier it is to build a solid foundation, one brick each morning, for the fortress of your own life. 4. Control your environment. Clear the world before stepping into yourself. If willpower is a flame, then the environment is the wind. A gentle breeze can help the flame grow, but if it's too strong, it will extinguish everything. And most of us begin our day in chaotic winds. Notification sounds, the harsh light of a phone screen, sensational headlines, and a to-do list long enough to suffocate us. The problem isn't that you lack discipline. It's that you allow a messy, unconscious environment to hijack your entire mind before your willpower even wakes up. People with depth in thinking don't just manage their time. They manage their physical space. They don't wait for the next morning hoping for peace. They prepare the night before, dimming the blue light, keeping the phone away from the bed, tidying up the desk, setting out a book or a pen. These are not robotic actions. They are invitations to yourself. Tomorrow, live with intention. You cannot expect focus to arrive when you're surrounded by noise, just as you cannot expect calm to appear when the first thing you see upon waking is a chaotic world. Seneca once said, "We cannot master ourselves if we don't master our surroundings." Morning is a delicate moment, like stepping out of a dream and into reality. And you get to choose that reality: a tidy room, a soft light, gentle music, a pocket of silence untouched by the outside world. Successful people understand space shapes mindset. A quiet space leads you to thoughtful reflection. A clean corner reminds you of your control. And your act of deliberately shaping your living space is one of the clearest expressions of self-respect. You believe you deserve to start your day beautifully, so you create the conditions for it to happen. Nothing complicated is needed. Just step out of bed and not bump into a messy world. Just open your eyes and see something neat, intentional. A favorite book, a small plant, a line of words reminding you why you started. Morning doesn't need many words. It needs space. and only you can decide whether that space is quiet enough to nurture the willpower that is quietly growing within you. 5. Disciplined thinking. Waking up early is not about obligation, but about dignity. Waking up early has never been easy, especially when the blanket is warm, the sky still dark, and the mind tangled like a ball of thread. But the ancient sages didn't rise early because of a packed schedule or pressure to succeed. They rose early because they understood if you let the morning slip away in laziness, your whole life will be led by procrastination. Epictetus, a slave-turned-philosopher, once emphasized, "When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, did I wake to be a human or to remain lying there like an unburied corpse?" That question strikes like a slap in the face, because procrastination doesn't just steal your time, it steals your identity and honor. Roman warriors didn't train on the battlefield. They began the day in silence, with discipline, with ritual, with habit. No supervision, no applause. They did it because they knew conquering oneself is the foundation for confronting any enemy outside. Confucius once said, "If in the morning I hear the way, I am content to die that evening." Hearing the way isn't about learning some lofty theory. It means beginning the day with awareness, right action, and moral integrity. A virtuous man doesn't waste his morning in sluggishness. Marcus Aurelius, philosopher and emperor, wrote in his journal, "Get up. You were not born to lie under the covers, but to do what is right." When he wrote this, he wasn't scolding himself. He was training his will, shaping every line of thought, every hesitant moment to master the morning and thereby master his fate. The ancients knew if you can't control the first hour of your day, it's hard to control your entire life. And the morning, even just a few minutes, offers a chance to restore order with yourself, your inner world, and the values you choose to live by. Imagine a morning that begins slowly, quietly, with one disciplined act, not because someone forces you, but because you refuse to betray the better version of yourself. In that moment, you are no longer being pulled by temptation. You are the one leading yourself. And as the sages once said, what makes a human noble is not power or fame, but the ability to do what is right, even when no one is watching. That is the spirit you train each morning. Waking up early isn't about forcing yourself. It's about proving that you still have control over yourself. And if you can win over yourself at 5 a.m., then the world at 8 a.m. will seem far less intimidating. 6. Focus on what you can control. The morning is sacred ground for the inner self. In a chaotic world where news updates are constant and social expectations infiltrate every corner of life, it's easy to be swept away. But the ancients understood well. A person who cannot distinguish between what they can control and what they cannot will live in constant turmoil. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Some things are within our control, others are not." Confusing the two leads to suffering. And no time is better than the morning to redraw that boundary. When you wake up before the world imposes its story on you, that is the moment you have a choice. A choice to breathe deeply, to write one line of reflection, to do one small but right thing. All of it lies in your hands. No one can take away those 15 minutes of mindfulness unless you give them away yourself. Confucius once said, "The noble person seeks it within, the petty person seeks it from others." Morning is the time to seek within. Don't let the beginning of your day be governed by emails, messages, or fears of the future. Start with what you control: how you think, how you act, how you reset your mindset. Marcus Aurelius, during long nights on the front lines, didn't write for literature. He wrote to preserve his reason. In his journal, he asked, "If the world seems tangled, return to the essence of things. Ask, is this within my control?" And he answered through a life of composure, focus, and emotional clarity. Like an inner compass, the early hours help you realign your direction, not by controlling the world, but by controlling yourself. You can't force the sun to rise earlier, but you can choose what to do with its light. Eastern thought agrees. Zhuangzi told a story of a man rowing a boat downriver. If a drifting, unmanned boat hits him, he feels no anger. But if the boat has someone steering and still crashes into him, he gets furious. The issue is not the collision, it's how the mind reacts. Morning is the boat you steer. Before impact, you can prepare your mindset. You can choose calm over panic, self-command over blind reaction. And it all begins the moment you sit down alone, in silence, with yourself. In a world where everything can be lost, status, money, voice, there's one thing you can always protect: how you begin your day. It's a territory no one can invade unless you surrender it. When you begin your morning with intention, you're not just building a good habit. You're constructing a fortress for your willpower. You're telling the world, "I am the one at the helm of my life." The ancients didn't have reminder apps or smartwatches, but they had something stronger: self-discipline. They understood that the morning is not just time, it is a test of whether you still govern yourself or have handed control to temptation, delay, and the soft voice of surrender. Remember Epictetus' words: "He who has mastered the morning has won half the battle of the day." So before you scroll, read the news, or dive into work, give yourself 10 to 20 minutes. Not because you're free, but because you value yourself. Choose to sit in silence and listen to your thoughts. Write 3 things you're grateful for, or 3 things you'll do better today. Read a few lines from the ancients, Marcus, Zhuangzi, or Confucius, to nourish your spirit. Or simply breathe deeply, stand tall, and say to yourself, "Today, I do not retreat." Don't wait for a perfect future to begin change, because true change doesn't start from the outside world. It starts from within, in the moment you decide, "This morning is mine." Begin not tomorrow, but this very morning. Ask yourself, will you spend the first 20 minutes of your day enslaved to old habits? Or will you use them to become the commander of your own fate? If life feels overwhelming, if each morning begins with exhaustion, don't rush to blame your weakness. You don't need to change the world. Just start with the first 20 minutes. Try it for a week. Nothing elaborate. Just wake 20 minutes earlier than usual. Silence your phone. Sit with yourself. Write one thing you're grateful for. Read a passage that grounds you. Breathe slowly. And remember, you're doing this not for others, but for yourself. The self that deserves to be awake, strong, and sovereign. If any part of this writing stirred something in you, a reminder, a small light, a desire to change, don't let it pass like every other morning. Save this. Share it with someone who needs it. And if you want to keep walking the path of self-development, I invite you to walk together, so that every morning is no longer a delay, but the beginning of a better you and a clearer life. Let the first 20 minutes of your day become the foundation for a lifetime of strength